Hi, good evening. Just one second, there's some problem here. Hi, good evening, and welcome to my daily live session on various topics for on execution excellence. There is some problem here as far as the LinkedIn is concerned. I think I'm not able to go live. There it is. Now I'm live. So again, once again, welcome to you all. I'm talking on a regular basis on various tools and methods from my toolkit for execution excellence. My name is Dinakar. I'm the founder of Samuthana and the inventor of DoHo. Today, at the beginning, there was a small glitch because small technical glitch because the live session did not work on LinkedIn, whereas it was working on Facebook and YouTube, and therefore I had to just get in live once more. And you can possibly make out that my voice is a little coarse because I have a small cold because of some dust allergy. And so, with that very brief introduction of myself, let me invite you to our Duho web workshop this Sunday, 14th of March at 11 o'clock Indian Standard Time on uh, career development. It's a web workshop because it's something which is totally interactive, where you don't really have a monologue. It's basically total interaction. Everybody is participating. Therefore, it's called as a web workshop, and it's a workshop where you work and do something. So, invite you for that on 14th of March, and on I think, yeah, 14th of March it is. So, if you are interested in joining, please do visit our website dinakarmurthy.com, and then register to the program. So, with that very brief introduction and invitation to register to the Duha workshop on this Sunday, let me directly talk about the recap of whatever I spoke yesterday, which was a very simple model which is called the ADKAR change model, ADKAR, which are 5 steps for achieving any change in any organization. That's what I spoke about yesterday. Emphasis on awareness to really make sure that people are clear that there is a change required, and then they need to have a desire, motivation to participate in the change. Then the knowledge as to how to change and what needs to be done, and finally the ability to implement the required skills and behaviors, and finally reinforcement of whatever that you have changed, so that it will last for a long time and it becomes a sustainable change and not a temporary spike which could fizzle out after some time. So that was the basic idea of the ADKAR model. I said I've been using it in many of my activities, and in a big way, quite regularly, quite consistently. So you can also use that. You can also try it out. It's quite easy, quite simple to adopt. And the key is to identify these 4 phases in a change and then accordingly work upon them. And some other day, I will talk about the concept of what is called as the change curve, which is also called as the Kubler-Ross curve, which talks about the confidence levels in the organization when a change is going through. And that's again very interesting. So that we will reserve it to some other day. And today, let me go to a very interesting topic, a very, very simple, fundamental topic of structured problem solving, which is also the 5 steps, which is very, very simple. DMAIC is what it is called as: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So, since the content in the slide is not much, I will leave it as it is and then try to directly talk without really making the slide bigger. So, with that, you can see my face, and possibly much will be much more interesting to do that than looking at the slide, static slide. So what is DMAIC? Define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. This is a very simple thing, and possibly this is very simple at the same time, yet most complex for many organizations. Very, very complex, and very complex for most of the people, but for a few who are thinkers and problem solvers. For others, it would seem as if it's Greek and Latin. I have seen this happen in my organization, and the same is true in other organizations also. Therefore, you have experts who are capable of doing problem solving, who find it very easy, very interesting. For the others, it's quite strange. These 5 steps, very simple steps: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. In my experience, I'm going to talk about what I would consider as key success factors in each of these 5 steps, so that one could use this in their workplace, and at the same time make use of the structured methodology which is already known, right? So let me talk about the key success factors. First, when it comes to defining a problem, The key success factor from my perspective is to really visit the location where the problem is occurring. That is the most important thing, to really get a hands-on information as to what the situation is, because the communication coming through somebody, through to somebody, through to somebody, always gets uh, distorted. It will not be the correct information at all. So therefore it's important to see, feel and sense the spirit and the actual reality wherever the problem is. This is something very interesting. When I go to assess any company, I always say that, look, we're not come here to really verify what you're doing. And I'm sure you're doing the right job, because you're the best ones to do that. Whatever we can check are only things which are not seen by you. Maybe the spirit of the people around, when you get into a particular situation, or the vibes which you get when you get into the shop floor, when you go to the operations floor. What kind of vibes do you get? Is it something which is positive? Is it something which is neutral? And those things are which cannot be really described. And that's what you see when you go to the place where the problem occurred. So it's important, most important, to visit the place where the problem occurred before defining a problem. That is the first aspect of problem solving. The next is, there is, I don't know whether you heard of what is called as the Kepner-Trego method of problem solving. I talk about that on some other day. Kepner-Trego basically talks about 4 different questions to ask. First question is, uh, where is the problem occurring? Where is it not occurring? When is the problem occurring? When is it not occurring? Then how much is the problem occurring? How much is it not occurring? That means how much, to what extent could the problem have occurred, or to what extent it could have occurred but has not occurred. And one is where, when is it occurring, to what extent is it occurring. And the next is how often is it occurring. Is it something which is very regular or quite infrequent. So this is something which is where you need to ask these basic questions to stratify the problem and arrive at the real issue. Otherwise, it will be really cluttered with so many topics. Yesterday, we were talking about problem solving with one of our clients, and they were telling that we got so many causes, so we get confused. Obviously, we get confused. Therefore, it's important to try to stratify it, to bring down to the narrow down to a particular issue, which is the core issue when it comes to problem solving. So therefore, when you define the problem, the first thing is to go to Gemba. Second is to stratify to a great extent, so that the problem becomes more defined. And third, definitely most important, success factor. I'll talk about 3 success factors in each of these steps. The third one, which is very, very important, is to make sure that there is a problem. Because many times the problems also are fictionally created for some kind of a recognition in companies. So you need to make sure that the problem is really a problem. So these are the 3 things when you define the problem. First is to go to the place where the problem occurred. Second is to make sure that you have stratified, so that the problem has been narrowed down to the most what should I say, focused area that can be targeted. And the third one is to make sure that the problem is really a problem. Then you define the problem based on that. Then after that, you go to the measure phase. Measure phase is all about measuring how much is the problem, how much is the deviation, how much is the value. That's basically measurement is what you do. In that phase, the first thing which I would recommend is to make sure that whatever you are measuring is something which is standardized. That means the way of measurement, the way of computing, the way of checking has to be standardized, has to be defined, has to be somewhere described as to how you go about doing it. And also to make sure that the variation coming from the measurement is not something which is very big. Because if suppose that's in the technical terminology, it's called as the MSA, measurement system analysis, where you do a study of what is called as CGMK or GRR, or the stability test, or the linearity test, etc., to make sure that the measurement is something which is quite accurate for whatever tolerance you have got. So that's the next one which has to be done. The same thing can be also done when you look at tolerances or specifications which are not manufacturing related, where also you try to make sure that the activity, whichever you are, the phenomenon whichever you are measuring, is quite repeatable, and that can be done by making sure that the definition of the standard as to how the measurement has to be done is very, very clear, very unambiguous. That is the second. First one is to make sure that there is a standard. Second is to make sure that there is some kind of a measurement is being done. So some kind of a accuracy in measurement is being checked. That is the second one. Then comes the next one, which is very, very important, which is to talk about the frequency of measurement. At what clock speed are you measuring? That is again the next most important thing, because clock speed is something which defines the speed at which the things are changing. And there, unless you are measuring at the right frequency, it won't make any sense. Therefore, my recommendation is define the clock speed when you are measuring in the standard itself. and then make sure that this is something which is constantly done so that you collect the data over time before you really analyze a problem. Data is extremely important for any problem solving. So that's the measure phase. Three rules, three success criteria. First one was to make sure that there is a standard. Second one is to make sure that the measurements are going to be accurate. And the third one is to make sure that it is measured at a frequency or a clock speed that is appropriate to the problem which you are solving. If it is something to do with a strategy, then maybe you need to measure once in a week. If it is something to do with production, maybe you have to measure every hour. It's depending on what the target is, what the problem is, you need to appropriately adjust the clock speed. There are the three success factors for measurement. Then comes the next one, which is analyze. Today, I'll take a little longer because this is something which is very, very interesting, close to my heart. And this is something which is fundamentally a challenge in most of the companies. So let me take a little longer time. Analyze is a phase where you're trying to gather the data and analyze to find out what is the root cause. That's the basic objective of this analysis phase. In the analysis phase, the most important thing is to make sure that you have created a cause and effect diagram, or it could be called as an Ishikawa diagram. If you want to call it, you call it as a mind map, whatever you want, you can do. That's a very simple thing. Basically, it is describing what are the causes and what are the effects of the causes. Later during this week, I'm going to be talking about that as far as the Ishikawa diagram is concerned. This is a Ishikawa diagram. It will come on Monday, I think, next week, or maybe a little later on to Friday. This week, Friday, it will come. So till then, have patience. And in the meantime, that kind of a diagram needs to be created to understand which are the different causes. And for each of these causes, in case you have not done, that is the first step. First key success factor is to visualize the cause and effect of any particular problem. And in case for any of these causes, measurement is not being done, go back to the earlier step, and measure the data. Get the measurement done. That is important. So only when you have measurement done, then will it make sense in using it for any analysis. So analysis should be done once the measurements are done. In case the measurements are not complete, then go back and get the measurements done, come back to the analysis phase. So first success factor in analysis phase is to create a Ishikawa diagram, and then to ensure that there is a good amount of data available, measurements are being done for those, preferably with regular reporting. And then comes the next key factor in analysis stage, to understand the correlation. So here, I think a lot of wisdom is required for looking at the data and trying to see if there is any correlation between A and B, correlation between A and C, correlation between cause A and cause B. And that's something which happens, one, intuitively, second, based on experience, and third, based on analysis. Right? Absolutely clear analysis. You can use statistical tools for that. Try to find out correlations between the data. That is the next one, which is very, very important. The second aspect of analysis. Once you have understood the analysis and the correlation, and you also start talking about using multiple quality tools where you can establish the cause and effect. Correlation is mainly to establish the cause and effect and to understand what are the interlinking relationships there, how the system is working. That is the basic objective of the second key success factor. Once you have done that, and maybe you come up with one or two causes, and these causes, you need to validate it. That is the next important thing. Most important thing is to validate. When you say validate, I'm talking about making sure that this particular cause is changed. For example, if suppose the cause was temperature, for example, then I increase the temperature and see that the problem occurs, or I decrease the temperature, see the problem occurs. If the flow was a problem, I increase the flow was the cause, then I increase the cause, make sure that the flow, increase the flow and make sure that the problem occurs. Reduce the flow, make sure the problem occurs. If the cause was somebody who is not trained, then in that system, I'll induce somebody who is not trained and make sure that the problem occurs. Then I say that, okay, that's the cause. So that's something which has to be done, validated. That is the last part of the analysis. First is, like I said, to ensure that the cause and effect diagram is prepared, and the second is to make sure that the data is checked for any correlations, any connections between the two interrelationships, etc., to understand the root causes. A root cause could be multiple also. And then third one is to make sure that the cause is validated by making sure that that particular analysis, whatever you did, it can be proven in reality. That is the third part of analysis. Once you've done that, you come to the improve phase. In the improve phase, the main objective is to make sure that the problem is sorted out. So you would have initially done some kind of a containment action during the define phase. I think I missed it out. In the define phase, the other important factor is to ensure that there is some kind of a containment done, that the problem doesn't get worsened. In the improve phase, you are trying to improve a corrective action, put a corrective action in place, and there my recommendation is to really do some kind of a quick cost benefit analysis before you introduce any corrective action. And then plan a preventive action also. Preventive action is extremely important in the improve phase. And once you have done that, then to make sure that the defect has really vanished, that is the improve phase. Basically, to really do the improvement actually. And here, the most important thing is, apart from making the action plan, to validate it physically over some time to confirm that the defect has got eliminated because of that particular action which we have taken, so that it won't get repeated in the future. And when you do the improve phase, find actions for the three questions. First is, why did the defect occur? Why did the defect not get detected? And the third one is, why were we not in a position to predict the defect? That's a system action. The last action is a system action. Second action is mostly a kind of a preventive action, which could be having something to do with a checklist or the training or something like that. Whereas the third action is extremely important because that's the organizational learning. Why were we not in a position to predict this defect? That is the third part. For all the three, you need to do improvements. Once you're on the improvement, then go to the control phase. Control phase is very simple, and the most, what should I say, dangerous phase, which is missed out in all the problem solving and improvement projects. Control phase is to make sure that you put in a system in place that this particular cause and effect which you have analyzed and all the causes which you have analyzed will be controlled over time for infinity. For immortally, they will control the particular cause over time. And that means that there has to be some kind of a audit, could be a control action. There could be a additional checklist. There could be a, see, audit means I'm talking about auditing the auditee. So it's one level above. Your preventive action could be to audit, and control action would be to audit the auditee. That would be the control action. Control action would be to make sure that there are some kind of hard locks built into the system so that you can't deviate at all. Control could be that you have got an automated reporting system where if somebody doesn't do, then the reports goes and it is mentioned and recorded that the fellow didn't do the job. And that didn't do the job is then taken as a basis for his assessment and appraisal at the end of the year. So that they are the control measures. Control is very, very, what should I say, black and white. There is no gray in control. It's either yes or no. So this control phase is extremely important. So these are the 5 phases: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. If you go through these 5 phases, you can solve any problem and basically kill the problem, not solve the problem, kill the problem. And of course, I explained to you, I think you must have found it quite interesting, but then please believe that it is not that easy. You need to have a lot of gray hair to be able to find a problem solution very, very quickly. So if you need any solution to be done, please do write to me, dinakar@sumutana.com. We'll be more than happy to help you out on this. And technical problems, it could be technical organizational problems, and I've got a fantastic tool which I use for solving the problem, which is the flow assessment, which is going through the same direction in a different structured way. Because I start with the Ishikawa diagram, then come back to measure, then come to improve, control. So I do everything as you go along. So it's a different activity. It'll take about 2 hours for finding a solution to any, for basically putting the basic structure in place to find a solution. And then you may need, depending on the clock speed of the problem, 1 week or 2 weeks or 1 month or 2 months or 1 quarter or 2 quarters to find a solution. But it is something which is guaranteed proven methodology. If you're interested, please do write to me. With that, thanks a lot for watching. For those of you in India, have a nice evening. For those of you outside India, have a great day ahead. And see you tomorrow, more or less at the same time, on a different topic. This time, the topic would be insights, leadership styles. Let me talk about that. I'm not specifically talking about insights as a methodology for the leadership styles. I'll talk about various methods available for talking about the leadership styles. So let's discuss that tomorrow at 8:30 Indian Standard Time. Till then, goodbye and take care. All the very best.